Thank you, Rita. Coming up on tonight's Look East. Gasps in court as details are revealed of the savage murder of an elderly woman at her home in Cambridgeshire. Concern more properties along our coast could fall into the sea as a woman in Norfolk fears she could lose her second home in 10 years.
For me, it's a personal tragedy, but the reason I keep on fighting for defences for Haysborough is that I see that the consequences to our county are just horrific.
30 years after the Battle of Brightlingsea, I've come back to the Essex port to see what impact those demonstrations had on live animal exports.
And we meet the 70-year-old double world champion, known to millions as Badass Gran. First tonight, gasps from the public gallery in the trial of a man accused of killing an 86-year-old widow. Una Crown was found dead in her bungalow in Wisbech in 2013. Today, the court heard details about the horrific injuries she suffered. David Newton, who lived nearby, is on trial for her murder. Mosimi Bakshi is outside Cambridge Crown Court for us now. Mo.
Amelia, it was a difficult day for the prosecution and a difficult day for Una's family as they heard the precise details of how she died. We heard that despite her 86 years of age, she grappled with her attacker, defensive marks on her right hand caused by a knife. And it's Una Crown's right hand, the prosecution say, holds the key to this case. It's now 12 years since retired postmistress Una Crown was murdered. Widowed after the death of her husband, she lived a quiet life until her violent death on the 12th of January 2013. And while police officers surrounded her bungalow days later, on the day she was found, it was initially thought she died as a result of a kitchen fire. But in court, the post-mortem revealed that she had in fact been stabbed so brutally, one of her wounds was 24 centimetres deep. The unsolved murder led to various appeals, and in 2023, the BBC's Crime Watch programme ran a reconstruction. Despite being set alight, Una's right hand was unscathed, meaning nail clippings could be taken for tests. But it wasn't until 2023, when David Newton provided a new sample, that his DNA was matched to specimens found in Una's nails. Tomorrow we'll hear from the police, and another difficult day in court as we hear why they initially thought Una Crown's murder was an accident. Mosimi Bakshi, BBC Look East in Cambridge.
We've had another snapshot of the pressures facing the region's hospitals this winter. The good news is that the length of time ambulances are waiting outside A&E has improved a little. The bad news is that the number of patients waiting to be discharged is going up and the pressure on hospital beds is growing. Our political editor, Andrew Sinclair, is here. So, Andrew, are things getting better or worse?
Well, according to the NHS, last week was the busiest yet, with 96% of beds occupied. There are a few signs of hope. Flu cases are falling slightly, and there's been this drop in ambulance waiting times. Last weekend, 11.5% of ambulances were waiting for more than an hour to hand over patients. That's down from 27.5% the weekend before. We had that critical incident in Northamptonshire, you may remember. But at the same time, it's getting harder to discharge patients who are medically fit to leave, but there's nowhere for them to go. 895 were bed blocking across the region last week. That's up on the week before. Bedford, Luton, Milton Keynes particularly had problems. And of course, MPs are hearing lots of stories about this sort of thing. In Parliament yesterday, the Hitchin MP, Alistair Strathern, said an 85-year-old constituent had to sit in a chair for 30 hours because there were no beds available. The Bury St Edmunds MP, Peter Brinsley, who's a consultant, said winter pressures had led to the cancellation of some of his operations. The West Suffolk MP, Nick Timothy, complained about ambulance response times. So for many MPs, this is a very real issue at the moment.
Yeah, so what's been the government's response then?
Well, the Health Secretary told MPs that he'd done everything possible to prepare the NHS for winter, rolling out flu vaccines, settling pay disputes, and he blamed the last government.
I will not pretend that everything's going well when it is not. The experience of patients this winter is unacceptable. I said coming into this winter that 14 years of failure can't be turned around in 6 months. It will take time to fix our broken NHS.
He says the key to taking the pressure off hospitals is to get more people treated in the community. To that end, he's giving more money to GP surgeries so they can take the pressure.
And we're going to be talking about winter pressures, aren't we, on this Sunday's Politics East and reporting from the front line of a GP surgery. We'd really like you to get in contact with your experiences of the NHS. Look, we're 2 weeks into the new year. Tell us what's happening from your point of view, the good and the bad. My email is amelia.reynolds@bbc.co.uk and I will make sure I put as many of your points as possible to my guests on Politics East, Sunday, BBC One at 10. Time now for a quick roundup of some other news. The Chief Constable of Thames Valley Police, which covers Milton Keynes, has been suspended with immediate effect. It comes as an investigation is launched into allegations of gross misconduct around the improper retention of sensitive police information. The Police and Crime Commissioner says his suspension has no bearing on any indication of guilt and there is no criminal investigation. Police are investigating a blogger who gained access and took photos inside a house in Essex where a woman murdered her parents. In June 2019, Virginia McCulloch killed the pair at their home in Great Baddow. She was jailed for 36 years. Footage posted on social media showed where both bodies had been hidden until they were found in 2023. And a fifth teenager has been charged with the murder of a 17-year-old who was stabbed to death in Bedford last week. Thomas Taylor died after he was attacked near the town's bus station on Greenhill Street. A 17-year-old has been remanded in custody. 4 other teenagers have already been charged with murder. A woman who lost her bungalow to coastal erosion more than 10 years ago fears she's about to lose her new home. Bryony Nerop Redding has lived at Haysborough in Norfolk since 2009 and says during that time the area has changed dramatically. It comes as a task force set up to protect large parts of our coast has been disbanded. Debbie Tubby reports.
I see the sea creeping in closer and closer. I watch it from my bathroom window. I always do a check first thing in the morning.
Bryony Nerop Redding has lived on the edge once before, losing her home to the sea. Now she fears history is about to repeat itself.
Right, that's 7 metres 20 to there.
The home she now lives in once stood a quarter of a mile from the sea. It's now just 18 metres.
I did not expect to have to move out of a second home. I thought I'd see my life out in this home here.
In 2009, she bought a bungalow in Haysborough, metres away from the cliff edge, thinking she had time on her side. But just 4 years later, after the tidal surge of 2013, her bathroom was left hanging over the edge. Her home demolished, but determined to stay, she eventually moved into a house on the other side of the road.
The further people live away from the edge of the cliff, the less concerned they are about it. And I don't think I'd have been any exception. I'd have moved inland and thought, oh, well, it's somebody else's problem, they can deal with it. And I thought it will focus my mind if I stay right on the edge.
From the beach, it's easier to see just how dramatic the coastal erosion has been. The concern that in just one fortnight last year, 10 metres of land was lost to the sea. And the reality is that will happen again.
The reason I keep on fighting for defences for Haysborough is that I see that the consequences to our county are just horrific. I mean, the Broads would go.
She's concerned as a cross-border task force to deal with coastal erosion is disbanded, leaving individual counties dealing with climate change.
I will go on staying here as long as I possibly can, and I will go on fighting for the coast as long as I possibly can, and I can do it best from here.
In her will, she's left her land to her grandchildren, but she doesn't believe there will be anything left in a village known for falling into the sea. Debbie Tubby, BBC Look East, Norfolk.
The former chairman of Northampton Town Football Club has appeared in court charged with fraud. David Cardoza is one of 5 men facing charges relating to a multi-million-pound loan to the town's football club. It follows a 9-year police investigation into the apparent disappearance of more than £10 million, which was loaned to the club by the then Northampton Borough Council. Kate Bradbrook was in court.
Well, 4 of the 5 defendants appeared here at Northampton Magistrates Court earlier. Among them, David Cardoza, 54, the former Northampton Town chairman, Howard Grossman, a 63-year-old property developer, his son Marcus Grossman, and 54-year-old Simon Patnick. A 5th defendant, 80-year-old Anthony Cardoza, was excused from attending the hearing on medical grounds. Now, all are charged with conspiracy to commit fraud between September 2013 and April 2015 in relation to money loaned by the then Northampton Borough Council to the football club on the understanding it would be used to develop Sixfields Stadium. Now, the Cardozas are both charged with fraud by abuse of position relating to £8.7 million being paid from the football club to First Land Limited, a company owned by Howard Grossman. David Cardoza, Howard Grossman and his son Marcus, alongside Simon Patnick, are further charged with money laundering offences. Now, this is the first time that anyone has appeared in court in relation to a 9-year police investigation in relation to the disappearance of more than £10 million loaned by the council to the football club. Today, the 4 men spoke only to confirm their names and dates of birth. All 5 men are due to appear before Northampton Crown Court on the 27th of February. Kate Bradbrook, BBC Look East in Northampton.
Stay with us, there's lots more to come. We meet the double world champion who only started training at 68. And what do you make of AI?
I embrace it, really. Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
If there's people doing certain jobs now, are they going to lose their jobs in the future if they invest in that sort of stuff? I don't know.
Well, as the government plans to transform the country using artificial intelligence, we look at how this region is already leading the way. Now, it's hard to imagine Brightlingsea in Essex as anything but a quiet seaside community. But on this day, back in January 1995, it became a very different place. Hundreds of local people and many more from right around the country descended on the town after its port was chosen to ferry live sheep and calves to mainland Europe to be slaughtered. The protests continued for 10 months, but it took another 3 decades for change to happen, as Alex Dunlop reports.
Not much happens in this quiet town of half-timbered pubs where dog walkers have a chat and locals stock up on plants before spring. But 30 years ago today, this community became the front line in what was known as the Battle of Brightlingsea.
This should never happen any day! Shame on you! Turn the lorries back! Turn the lorries back!
After some bigger ports stopped the animal exports, the trade moved to Brightlingsea. Many local people here were appalled. Sisters Natalie and Hayley joined in the daily demonstrations.
We then decided that we would actually sit in the road
in front of the lorries,
and the police were just coming along and they were lifting us from underneath and just shoving us to the side. There was dead animals hanging out of the windows. The animals that were still alive were in pain. It was so cruel, wasn't it? It was barbaric.
Brightlingsea tight road network did the lorry convoys no favours.
The only way to the port over there is down through this pretty narrow road right through the middle of Brightlingsea. And that meant that the protesters, the media, could get really close up to the animals in the lorries. Not a good look.
The Battle of Brightlingsea became an international story.
The Caroline remains in Brightlingsea waiting for her cargo.
Former Look East reporter Kevin Bentley witnessed it all.
And many people came from across Europe. I believe there were people here from Germany and Holland. And there was a really bigger police presence that came down. Lots of arrests took place. I remember being here quite late at night sometimes, having been here early in the morning, and there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people just in this small space.
Over 10 long months, front and centre was this woman, Maria Wilby.
The police came along with truncheons drawn already.
What surprised her was that local protesters included teenagers, mothers, pensioners.
A lot of people remember the Brightlingsea protests because they were so stunned by the fact that the ordinary people of the community were standing up together. I think that those people were extraordinary.
When the exporters finally gave up and moved out, campaigners celebrated. But live animal exports from the UK were only banned last year after Brexit. So was it worth it?
Those protests really left a ringing in the ears of politicians for many years to come. And so when the government had its opportunity to realise that the aspirations of the British people, it did it.
Like many old battlefields, the local landscape has softened, but memories of the Battle of Brightlingsea still resonate because it was a battle they won. Alex Dunlop, BBC Look East.
This week, the Prime Minister announced plans to transform the country using artificial intelligence. The use of AI in all sorts of areas has been growing over the past decade, and this region has been at the forefront. Our technology correspondent, Janine Machin, is in Cambridge tonight. Hi, Janine.
Hi, Amelia. Yeah, it's true that a lot of what the government has been talking about this week is actually not new to our region. In fact, it's more than a year ago that I was standing here at Addenbrooke's talking about how AI was improving a treatment for liver cancer, something called thermal ablation. It's a way of targeting hard-to-reach tumours, and AI was making that more accurate. But we've got loads of examples. In fact, the University of Cambridge is hoping one of its projects will transform the way we diagnose Alzheimer's.
Imagine a world where computers can look at a scan of your brain and tell you whether you could develop Alzheimer's disease. In a trial at the University of Cambridge, that idea is already a reality. In 82% of people with mild memory problems, the AI programme got it right.
I have no way of prognosis, really, of knowing what's going to happen to someone in the next 1 or 2 years. What this AI tool does is to say, well, this person's going to stay stable, but this person's going to progress moderately, or this person's going to change rapidly. So I know, which person that we need to concentrate on in terms of giving them extra support and extra monitoring for the future.
This is a scan of a healthy brain compared to one showing advanced Alzheimer's disease. The difference is obvious. But in the early stages, the changes are so small, they're often too hard to spot with the human eye. That's where computers and artificial intelligence come in. John Trull first had symptoms of Alzheimer's 5 years before his diagnosis. Patients often find out that they have the disease when it's too late for effective treatment. For John, knowing earlier may have made life easier.
I could have made the changes to where we were living and how we were living quicker than we did. It would mean that I could have established myself and my wife in the home with everything that we needed. It's very difficult when you can't remember things and where things are and where you put them to make your life better.
The AI tool also shows signs of being able to spot Alzheimer's disease in people without memory problems. If it gets funding, it could transform future diagnosis.
So one of the strengths of AI is how it can see those patterns and details that humans simply struggle to do. And it does it by analysing huge amounts of data. Now, when it comes to healthcare, that could be thousands and thousands of scans. But once it's been programmed and knows what to look for, it can spot those patterns incredibly quickly. Now, you may have heard earlier, people do have concerns about AI. Can it be trusted? What will it do for jobs? Well, as it stands, human beings have to oversee those results to double check them. And of course, these projects are constantly monitored for their effectiveness. But outside of healthcare, well, Bedfordshire Police was the first force in the country to use AI for some admin duties. We've got teachers using AI to help them plan lessons. It doesn't get rid of the detectives and teachers. It simply frees them up to do other things with their time. Now, the government also wants to build data and energy centres across the UK because AI takes a lot of computing power. We've had no detail about any in this region yet, but then again, it was only 2 years ago that Cambridge got a new supercomputer to help with that AI demand. But of course, any technology has its pros and its cons, and many do say that if we are going to ramp up the use of AI like this, then the regulation and the safety laws, well, they have to keep pace. Amelia.
So interesting. Thanks so much. Thanks, Janine. Now, teach a man to fish and you'll give him a lifeline. That's what an organisation in Essex is hoping to prove. Already, men and women who have suffered trauma and other mental health issues can be referred to iCarp, a kind of therapy through angling. But now a new study is recording and measuring those benefits, and it's hoped one day it will actually be prescribed by the NHS. Zoe O'Brien reports.
Funny over Christmas. Christmas is always a bit of a bad time for me. Because
it doesn't look like traditional therapy, but this project in Essex is hoping to prove that activities like angling could be effective if prescribed by doctors. Veteran Brian says fishing has helped him through dark times.
Even though my wife died 4.5 years ago, coming here, I'm still sort of grieving for it, and it helps with that. Just feels like a sense of belonging.
Brian is now a coach and is supporting others in need from this swim, which is named after his wife Gwen.
When I've sat with a guy and then they catch a fish and suddenly their demeanour changes straight away and their buzz is my buzz.
Investigating Countryside and Angling Research Projects, or iCarp, was born after psychiatrist Dr. Mark Wheeler realised traditional therapy and medicine wasn't helping some people, like military veterans. They've helped thousands from this base in Great Oakley.
We've had people that have said to us, without the interaction with you, without being able to contact you, you save lives.
Emergency service personnel, vulnerable young people and refugees are among the men and women supported here.
It might be a nice option for a GP to have in their toolbox rather than just the psychotropic medication or formal therapy, to have a third one as well that could work alongside either or both of the others. We'd like the NHS to adopt it as an option.
Participants can now be referred by the NHS through Op Courage, a specialist veterans service, and through mental health services. They say it's working.
Level of mental health challenges have reduced. There's been evidence that people are making new connections within the communities, which is really important, not just for the prevention side, but the recovery element as well. If you can get people early and be able to provide the right support for them, it will stop their mental health deteriorating.
iCarp is now at the centre of a 3-year study with the University of Essex, investigating the results of the programme.
A lot of the people that we work with are military veterans, and they have what it's called hypervigilance. So they tend to scan around looking for threats a lot. And we've got some really nice fancy glasses that we can put on and we can measure eye movements. And so we do that at the beginning of a fishing weekend and at the end, and then we look for a reduction in that hypervigilance over that time.
The university's findings should be published in 2028. iCarp hopes it will prove definitively that angling is an effective route to mental wellness, helping people let go of stress and anxiety with a dose of the great outdoors. Zoe O'Brien, BBC Look East.
Now let me introduce you to 70-year-old Celia Duff from Cambridgeshire. There she is. She's become a 2-time world champion in a sport you might not have heard of. It's called Hyrox and involves running, pushing, lifting and throwing heavy weights. All very impressive. But here's the thing that surprised me. Celia only started training 2 years ago. She now has thousands of followers on social media.
This is Celia Duff, also known as the Badass Gran. She's a retired doctor, Hyrox world champion twice over, and also happens to be 70 years old.
It was a slight throwaway remark from my daughter, who was an early Hyroxer, and she suggested that I ought to give it a go. So I got myself a ticket and then started to read about it properly and realised that it was pretty tough. So that's what got me into training more seriously.
Hyrox competitors race the clock in an 8-kilometre run, interspersed with rowing, lunges and sled pulls, to name a few of the exercises. Lots of us might be on a new year health kick at the moment, but it's hard to imagine taking on an event like that when your training started at age 68.
It's a very gruelling test, and when I'd completed it, I realised that I could probably do it a bit better if I refined some of my training, and it kind of built from there.
Her next competition is only a couple of weeks away. Celia says she's only racing herself, trying to beat her last time.
It's about resilience, it's about not giving up, but also, really importantly, it's about understanding the benefits of being fit. And then above everything, it's about being kind to everybody else that's out there on the racetrack and being grateful.
Charlotte Ball, BBC Look East.
I'm off home to do some press-ups. No, I'm not. Absolutely extraordinary. I mean, it looks, I don't know, very
It looks
impressive.
tough. It looks tough.
Really tough.
I think Celia might put me to shame if I even so much as attempted, so I won't. Let's do some weather, shall we? Now, today, kind of tailored two halves. A lot of fog this morning. Some of it really did linger. For elsewhere, we actually saw a little bit of blue sky. A bit of a treat, to be honest, wasn't it? Because we have had a lot of cloud around recently. And as we head into the rest of this week, into tomorrow, closer to the weekend, it is going to stay quite cloudy again. So, yeah, next few days, a lot of cloud. It will be dry, so that's something, but it is going to start to feel a bit colder as we head towards Saturday and Sunday, and there won't be a huge amount of sunshine at all really over the next day or two. So you might get some tomorrow, but I'll come to that in a second. This is our setup then over the next couple of days. High pressure has been with us already this week for much of it. It's keeping any weather fronts at bay and well away from us. Now, there will be a cold front that starts to approach sort of later into the weekend, but we don't really need to worry about that too much just yet. Let's focus on this evening, which is looking, surprise, surprise, very grey. A little bit of clear sky coming through, but where we get any of that, it is going to be quite misty and murky, I think, first thing. 2 or 3 degrees, so quite a chilly night, but very light winds taking us into Friday morning. And the setup actually tomorrow looks really no different from what we've had today. The same again, no real change. That high pressure keeps things settled. So it is going to be quite grey. There will be some fog, but it will lift and clear. You can see we get a little bit more a few more breaks rather in the cloud tomorrow. Little bit more of a chance of seeing some sunshine, still about 6 degrees, so fairly mild to end the working week. And then into the weekend, you can see we do start to get a change of wind direction. These weather fronts as well start to get a little bit closer, so they will bring us something a bit more unsettled as we head into next week. So there will be a bit of a change, but this is Saturday. It doesn't look that different, does it? Let's be honest, but it's the temperature that you'll start to notice. It will appear in a minute with any luck. It should be about 4 degrees. There's Sydney, it's there, and then a little bit milder but more unsettled next week.
Lovely, thank you very much, Jill. That is all from us for now, but Annie will be here with an update just before 10:30 tonight. Have a lovely evening, won't you? Bye-bye.